Improve your English with this short detective story. Listen carefully and try to solve the mystery. The thread under the door.
Alex, if you stare at that laptop screen for one more minute, your eyes will turn into computer code, I laughed, putting a fresh box of colored markers on the table. And if you buy any more markers, Melanie, we will need a bigger office, Alex smirked, not looking up. Are those posters for Professor Green's big presentation ready? Almost, I smiled. We were in the design studio, surrounded by papers and laptops. But the peaceful vibe disappeared when Professor Green ran into the room. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "Look at this," the professor gasped, dropping a small piece of paper on my desk. "I found it under my door just 2 minutes ago." Alex and I leaned closer. It was an anonymous note made from newspaper letters. "Your presentation will fail." "This is terrible," Professor Green said. "It must be Eddie, the student I expelled last week. He was so angry." "Eddie?" Alex asked, his IT logic turning on. "The guy who failed his exams?" "Yes, he wanted to destroy my project," the professor said. "I must call security." "Wait, Professor," I said, taking my magnifying glass. As a designer, I see every line. This note had a huge visual secret. "Look at the edges of these letters," I whispered to Alex. "When people cut newspapers quickly, the lines are messy. But these are perfect. No bumps. The person used very sharp, professional tools." "And smell the paper," Alex added, sniffing the note. "It smells like expensive men's perfume. Eddie only smells like energy drinks and old sneakers." "Let's check the science lab first," Alex said. We walked quickly down the quiet corridor to the lab. Professor Green stayed behind, but his young assistant Simon was there. Simon was always very polite to the professor, but he never smiled at other students. He thought he was a genius. "Hi, Simon," I said, opening the door. "Is the presentation screen ready?" Simon looked up from his computer, his eyes cold. "Yes, Melanie. I do all the hard work for the professor anyway," he muttered. I walked around the room, looking for clues. Suddenly, I spotted a black box on Simon's desk. Inside was a pair of beautiful, heavy silver scissors. "Wow, nice scissors," I said. "They are Japanese steel," Simon said proudly, closing the box fast. "They cut paper perfectly. I hate messy lines." Alex looked at me, and I gave him a quick nod. "Clean cuts." Alex walked to a shelf with science journals, pretending to look for a pen. He opened Simon's desk drawer and suddenly froze. He pulled out a rare mathematics journal. One page was torn. "Hey, Melanie, look at this formula," Alex called out. I looked. A small piece of paper was missing. Someone had cut out the infinity symbol, the mathematical sign that looks like a sideways number 8. "Simon," Alex smirked, "why did you cut this?" "It's just an old journal," Simon shouted, his face turning red. I placed the anonymous note on the desk next to the journal. "Look at the word your on the note, Simon," I said, pointing my marker at it. "The letter O is not a real letter. It is the infinity symbol. You needed a capital O, but you couldn't find one in the newspaper, so you cut it from your private journal." Simon stared at the paper. His hands started to shake. "Eddie doesn't read advanced calculus journals, Simon," Alex added. "Only you have access to this room." "Okay, fine. I wrote it," Simon suddenly shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. "Why, Simon?" I asked. "The professor trusts you." "Because he takes all the credit," Simon hissed, his eyes full of jealousy. "I did all the research. If his presentation fails tomorrow, the university will give his job to me." I wanted him to panic and cancel it. Well, your plan just failed, Alex said quietly. Simon grabbed his bag and his scissors and rushed out of the room, furious. 10 minutes later, we told Professor Green the truth. He sat down, completely shocked. Simon? The professor whispered. I was going to promote him next week. Don't worry, Professor, I smiled, handing him his presentation slides. Tomorrow will be a huge success. You don't need a jealous assistant. Thank you, kids, the professor smiled. Alex and I walked out of the science building. The evening sun was setting, painting the campus paths in warm orange colors. Well, Alex said, taking a sip from my water bottle without asking. Your eye for neat paper cuts is dangerous, Melanie. Hey, don't drink all my water, you thief, I laughed, bumping my shoulder against his. A good designer always notices the details, even a little infinity sign. Alex stopped under the big oak tree and looked at me with a playful smirk. A mini investigation? He asked. Closed, I answered with a wide smile.
If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and subscribe.